Hello guys, and welcome to the Built Different podcast. My name is Grant Stonebreaker, and today I'm here with Shari Strong.
Yay.
Welcome, Shari.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So excited to have you on. Shari and I have been getting to know each other for the past few months.
Yeah.
And you've inspired me so greatly just in your passion for community and helping others, and it 100% comes out in everything that you do, and you always show up with great energy and really just pour into other people, and I love your smile, so thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast.
Yeah, again, it's an honor to be here, so I'm excited about this.
So you've been an entrepreneur and a community leader for quite some time now. Tell me a little bit about how you got started into entrepreneurship.
Okay, that's an interesting story. So it was actually January 1st, 2013. So I started part-time in 2011 building what I thought I wanted to do. And it really all started way back when, like 20 years ago, and I was doing sales and growing up, so to speak, in the corporate world. And once I got involved, and I grew up in sales, so like everything you can imagine. And I started out, I don't know how far back you want me to go, but there's a little bit of a story there. I mean, I sold vacuum cleaners, I sold insurance, I sold, makeup.
Did you do door-to-door vacuum sales?
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Old school.
Old school stuff.
All right.
But you know what? Oh, encyclopedias, that was my favorite one.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, did door-to-door encyclopedias. That was fun. But what I learned, because I knew I wanted to do something and have more than what I had, and I didn't have a lot. And I actually was a dropout in high school, so if I was going to make money, I had to figure out how I was going to do that. But through all of that, ended up going back to school. Don't worry, I've got my BA, MA, and actually finishing my doctorate here in the next 3 months. But
wow.
But at that point, I knew I had big dreams, right? And I knew I was meant for more. I just didn't know how to do it. And so, but through all of that, what happened was my passion for leading people and teaching people, because I was learning so much, grew. And then I ended up getting like my first real corporate job and got promoted quickly, and was a manager in a sales company. I was one of the first of 2 women managers in a male-dominated world, and it was in politics, and I had no business being in politics. And then I ended up going to .com, and that's where I really grew up. And they gave me I think I just had sucker written on my forehead, and they're like, give it to Shari, she'll do anything. But I ended up being good at it. And that's when I learned I knew how to build something, strategies, and how to not train people, but lead people. And when you see somebody's eyes light up when they do something they didn't think they could do, and sell something or share something, that's when it really clicked for me. And I was like, I wanted to become the best leader I could there, and I think I did, and we could talk about that if you want to. And then, in fact, they thought I was going to be a lifer. But my passion for leadership and training people and helping, my personal motto is I want to help people do more, be more, and have more. That's my mission in life. And so I ended up leaving my dream job to live my dream, and by save money. And during that first 2 years, 2011, 2012, I was doing it on the side, coaching and leadership training. And then I made a plan to leave when I said I was going to leave, and I saved money, like what I knew I was going to need for that year, so I wasn't freaking out, so to speak, and did it. And it was scary, but that's how the first, entrepreneur. I just jumped in, but I did have a plan, and I had money saved up because I knew if I didn't, I would worry, and I knew that wouldn't help me at all build a business.
Yeah, so kind of entrepreneurship found you.
Yeah.
You weren't really seeking it out. It sounds like your company that you worked for, your team really trusted you with leadership position.
Yes.
You weren't necessarily seeking it out. They were just like, look at Shari go. We're going to give her some new project to focus on, and then it led you into entrepreneurship. Is that correct?
Oh, good listening. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
That's awesome. And so your first business was coaching others, and you were coaching other entrepreneurs, or why coaching?
Well, it was
like, obviously you love people.
Facilitating.
Okay.
So again, I think a lot of coaches have a story. And if you talk with a lot of coaches, that's why they go into the business. And that's great for some. I don't want to tell everybody, like, you might think that's for you. It's not for everybody because, and there's lots of reasons. But I wanted to help others overcome obstacles and have a life because I had a lot of obstacles and I had to overcome them. So I wanted to help other people don't do what I did. I want to help you, shorten that learning curve and shorten that journey to success, if you will. And that's really what drove me. So it was coaching, but I did it through training also. And mainly that was, I love facilitating. I love facilitating groups of people as well. So it was both. And it was entrepreneurs and it was people who wanted to build a business themselves and or an internal business. So I had again, that's where my passion grew, was how do you become the best leader in your company? And let me help you with that. And so it was kind of because I treated it as a business. And so it was internal businesses, if you will.
I love it. And I think it's so powerful that you made a plan to exit.
Yes.
I think a lot of people that I talk to, many of my clients, they actually want to leave corporate America. They don't necessarily know how to.
Yep.
And so they get stuck in that, that fear mindset.
Yep.
And how did you go from I'm a career woman in corporate America, obviously in a male-dominated world, that was very difficult.
Yeah.
So, and then now I'm going to be a woman business leader. Like, how did you get yourself to flip that mindset and like, I'm going to go after what I want, and I'm not letting anything get in my way?
Well, first of all, none of that mattered for me. It was truly about, for me, and again, where I came from, right? I remember sitting on a trailer floor with who was my first husband, and I was not very old. I think I was 19, and I already had 3 babies. And I remember taking my waitress money and buying the Tony Robbins cassette tapes. And I remember putting them in the big stereo, the box stereo.
Yeah.
You had to have one of those, no matter how much money you had. And I was sitting on the floor at night while the kids were sleeping, doing it, dreaming of helping people. Because I thought, there's no way I went through what I went through. And I hadn't even went through half of the stuff that I went through yet. God blessed me with a lot more obstacles after that. And it was just a dream. So for me, and I always said I would. And the name of my book, I had it written down when I was 19 years old. And it was, My Life Begins Next Monday, ... because I had a survival mindset. And I knew that if I could get to Monday, I love Mondays to this day because it's like starting over. And that was my survival when I was going through some very, let's just say, difficult times. And so I knew I had the title to my book about 20 years before I wrote it. And so for me, it was about legacy. And if I told people that I was going to do something, and I'm still that way, I'd do it. And so I said I was going to own my own business and do this, and I never wanted anybody to say, she didn't do that. I want, when I am gone from this earth, one of the things I want people to say is, when Shari said she was going to do something, she did it no matter what. And so that's what drove me. And so then I set up a plan, and I loved my job. But again, things were changing, and again, everybody thought I was going to be a lifer there. And I just decided to make a plan, and I had learned over all the obstacles. I mean, I was in a car accident where I lost the ability to use the side of my face. To this day, I still control it, and when I do speaking events, I show people that, and that's through the grace of God. And I had to overcome that, and then divorce, and then I lost everything. And through all of that, I knew that if I can make it through all of that, I'll make it through this, and what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I go back to work.
Yeah.
And you know what? Nobody's sitting around thinking, what's Shari doing today?
Right.
Nobody is. So nobody cares. My husband's not, well, he might be thinking about me right now, but he's probably working. And I think that's the biggest lesson too, is thinking, worrying about what other people think. Now, I just said at the end of my life, that's different. That's legacy thinking. But today, I made a plan. I'm going to do it. Nobody's sitting around going, what's Shari's plan today?
Right.
Whether I'm doing good, failed, nobody cares. All they'll see in the end is what people remember is what you did.
I'm glad you touched on that, because my first business was a short-term success, major success in the beginning, but it was not sustained, and I did get in that mindset of like, everyone's thinking about me. I have to maintain this certain level of success now because everyone's looking to me to lead and all these things, and I let that thinking affect my decision making instead of continuing to do what I knew was best for me.
And what have you learned from that sense?
That nobody cares, like you said. They care in a positive way, but they're not sitting around wondering what I'm up to.
Yeah, they're not worrying about your bills.
Right. Yes, and it took the pressure off, because now I'm able to look at, okay, what's best for me is best for everybody. I don't need to have the fancy office to impress anybody else. If it makes sense for what I need to do and to be effective, that's completely different. But I don't need to show up like I've been around forever. It's actually more powerful to be vulnerable and explain where you're at currently and where you're coming from and where you're going, instead of trying to pretend like you're like you're the shit.
That's usually the advice I give new entrepreneurs, is because a lot of them stay busy, but they're not productive because they're staying busy because of optics. And I get it. And you do have to manage optics and perception. And there's times to be vulnerable and there's times not to be. I've learned that too, because everybody knows everything about me, right? And there's times to not do that, but what I found with new entrepreneurs, and I made the mistakes too. See, so you've been blessed with a major, what a blessing it is to have that, and that you've turned that around. Because now you can actually empathize with other people a little bit more, right? And I think, and it doesn't matter if you're a coach with entrepreneurs, if you're a manager inside of a company, being able to empathize and not necessarily give advice. And I think that's the other thing. There's so many coaches that are actually consultants and they give advice. And that's not coaching, that's consulting. And so you have to know the difference. And coaches know when to give advice, but consulting is you hire me, I come in and I tell you what to do, and then you leave. Coaching is most people know the answer. They have the answer. You know what you want to do. There's something stopping you or you're not quite sure, and if I just ask you the right questions, you'll figure it out.
Yes.
And so that's true coaching, and that's what drives me to now. So I don't necessarily do coaching one-on-one, but when I do facilitating, when I'm working with organizations, it's about helping them unlock what they want. In fact, I'm doing a training today on, it's time management, but you know what it's really about? Mindset.
Everything is mindset.
Everything is mindset, yes.
And in that space, you've mentioned obstacles and adversity. Was there a defining moment in your life that led you to deciding that you wanted to live different and do something new?
Actually, yes. But it wasn't a positive one. When I was going through the divorce, had 3 teenagers, and that's when the car accident happened. And I had lost everything. Now I have nothing. I had to give up my job because of the car accident, because I couldn't sell because my face, and it took 9 months to recover from that. I was living off of donations from churches and friends, and until I got the settlement money, which wasn't a lot because they wanted me to sue the kid, and it was an accident. It was just an accident, and I decided not to. That's a whole story we could do a podcast on. But 3 months later, once I started working again, and I was just waitressing and delivering newspapers. I had 3 teenagers with no child support. And on the way home from like my second job, it was at 120th and Dodge. It's no longer there. But anyway, I was driving home, and where my accident was, they had decided to widen the road because there had been so many accidents there on Irvington Road, Blair High Road. They decided to actually widen it. So they were starting the construction. Now it's 2 o'clock in the morning. They put the orange cones in the wrong spot, and my car at 2 o'clock in the morning hit a bump, popped out both my tires on the passenger side. I have no cell phone. I have nothing. And I'm sitting there and I'm crying. And it was really the first time probably that I was yelling at God. And I'm a believer, but at that point I didn't have a relationship. But I was yelling at him like, what am I supposed to do here? And I didn't know how I was going to get home. I lived in Blair at the time. And I made the decision actually to end my life. But I was going to wait till my kids graduated. So I really didn't want to, but that, again, I was...
That's where your mindset was.
Yeah, I was in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, all you can do, and this is part of like what I'm developing in my doctorate, is how people make decisions. And when you're in survival mode, all you're thinking about is today. And so that allowed me to get through today and not actually end my life. But I lived that way for about 9 months. And then I met who is my husband today, and God was good. And, then everything changed, and then I ended up getting the job at the .com. And, but because of that it was so strong, but that was my plan. It helped me get through today. It helped me get through the next day. At least I had a 3-year plan now. Because everything else I tried when it came to jobs or anything else was not working. So that was my plan, and that was a defining moment, because then once I started having some good things happen, then things like changed. And then I realized, okay, there is more than this. And then, again, I was still in survival mode, kind of lived in denial for a while, but again, denial, that's kind of the next stage I talk about, is you're still moving forward, and it's not as big as it is, but I can think more than one day, right? So I was in denial, and there's a whole, I could give you an example, an extreme example. So back when I was living in that trailer, the lottery was like $1 million at that time, right? And you would spend $1. But I actually had a notebook that if I won that $1 million, $36 would go to electricity. I'd have $900,000 and, whatever, $74 left. Then groceries for the month, like that's how much in denial I lived. But see, I was past survival, I was looking to the future, but I was living in denial. But again, it helped me get through, right? So the defining moments in my life were not always like these great big positive things, and I had this big mentor. And I will say the .com company really changed everything. They gave me coaching. Again, they allowed me to make failures and not get punished, because that's what it felt like. They allowed me, see, I'll get tears in my eyes. They allowed me to fail, and they didn't fire me. And in fact, I kept going. And once I learned that, then I was on fire. I was like, okay, now let's go. Now I can teach others.
Yes.
Now I'm ready.
So you've got this really new, exciting project that you've been working on for a couple years now, or actually a little bit longer than that, from what I understand. But the Josh Place, tell me a little bit about the Josh Place.
So after all that experience, and I was never going to have a business again, and I did have a successful leadership company. I had 37 facilitators in 3 countries, and then the pandemic wiped us out. See, so again, you have to learn to pivot. And again, don't be thinking about everybody else. But back to the Josh Place, the reason I bring that up is I was never going to have a business again. I was done. So I went and got a day job, and I love my day job. And it's in the community. I'm the VP of a community for a large bank here locally. And so I was never going to have a business again. And then my son, who was 31 at the time, which is almost 4 years ago, passed away due to a mental illness. So again, another obstacle. But he lived with us off and on for basically 13 years. And he didn't need 24-hour care. He had a car and insurance, but he had schizophrenia. And we always taught, and his name was Josh, and there's just no homes. And in 5 states that we lived in, it's all the same. There's a few out there that are privately run, like where a woman is running a home for 7 people, but nothing that is duplicatable and that you can duplicate and take to different cities. And Josh and I had a model in our head, and he lived in one home where they just charged rent. Most of them charge 80% of their SSI or SSDI. They have to have less than $2,000 in resources. And we don't want to do that. We're going to charge them 30% of what their SSI or SSDI is. if they have a job, we won't take any of that. We won't charge them anything. That's just extra, or they'll go to a day program. And we want to build 7 homes in the next 5 years here in Omaha as the first campus. And we believe, and we've had people already call us from like Houston, Chicago, and we believe we can take this to other cities. But otherwise, where they're going is to halfway homes, which that's not where they should be, or to homes with developmentally disabled people, and that's not where they should be.
And so who are these homes for the Josh Place? Who is this to benefit?
So it'll be for people who have a chronic mental illness, meaning they've been diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, and something like that, where, like Josh lived with us, but when he would go off his meds, it was hard. And lots of families do not have somewhere to take their family member, and you might know somebody who has a mental health problem that could develop into a chronic mental illness. In fact, I have had 2 calls this weekend needing a home. And one of them was 19 years old, and I hope he does not have schizophrenia, but it sounds like he might. He's using alcohol and weed to, deal with the voices. And he'd be a perfect candidate for this because he has no violence in his background. One of the homes we plan on having to be a 30 to 60 day stay. There'll be criteria, like they haven't had violence in their background. And then if they're on their way, if they're doing their things, they can actually get a room and they can live there forever. Like, this is not going to be somewhere where they have to graduate. That's the problem. And we're solving that problem.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so we're excited. And Josh I know he's just excited about it.
That's so cool. And so you're in the planning phase,
Yes.
right? You're developing.
Yes.
And so what are you needing? What resources can we help you out with?
Sure. So we're going to be giving away a house as a raffle. Found a builder to help us with that. And so we're going to sell 3,750 tickets for you to have a chance to win a house, or it'll be a stipend of $455,000 and to build with this builder. And if you don't want that, you could take $350,000 cash. We're going to start selling that by February 1st in 2026.
How much are tickets?
$222, unless you know Grant, you get $22 off.
So $222 gives you the chance to win a $450,000 house.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then we'll have a gala August 8th, and we're going to live stream the drawing of the giveaway, and second place is $20,000. So we'll have the gala August 8th if you want to have a table there and be in the room, so to speak, but it's going to be at Victory Lane. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, we're just starting that, and that's what we need is people who, if you're scared about safety of people in Omaha, I'll just give some quick numbers. The studies show that 2,000 people are homeless in Omaha at any one time. 45% of those have a mental illness, and they've not just diagnosed or have been diagnosed, and again, families don't have the resources, they end up homeless. If we can help 10% of that, so that's around 900, and that's 7 houses, we'll be helping 10% of that population have somewhere to go. And then what that does is that'll save the city around $1 million in services that happen, emergency service, cleanup, that type of thing. But people who have family members and don't know what to do, that's what we're going to be providing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Shari, this is super exciting. I can't wait to see how this progresses, and I can't wait to have you back on with a fun update about the Josh Place. And thank you for really getting vulnerable and telling us all about your journey with entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Grant.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. I hope to see you.